Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ashland Planning Board meeting, December 10th, 2020. Tonight, we have a few things on our agenda. First public hearing for 20 Ponderosa special permit modification. This is continued from November 12th, and the Ashland Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, October 22nd. That was the original. Via Zoom to hear a petition of T-Mobile Northwest requesting a special permit modification of the Ashland bylaws. The applicant seeks to modify the existing special permit for the removal of 3 existing antennas, remote radio heads, install 9 new wireless communication antennas on the existing antenna mount for a total of 12 antennas with 6 new remote radio units mounted behind the antennas on the existing 150-foot wireless tower. So the antennas will be located at the same center line height as 147. The project includes removing 1 equipment cabinet, installing 1 new equipment cabinet, 1 battery cabinet on the existing concrete pad within the existing fenced area. Property is located at 20 Ponderosa Street. And then we're going to have a review of 5 Homer Street sign design as part of a condition of their permit. And then we're going to have a bond release for 81 West Union Street, phase 1, and a Valentine zoning update for the Valentine estate, and then administrative stuff. So first, I guess we'll open up unless
Could I just
Emma wants to give the speech about the Zoom and all that.
Yes, my favorite speech.
Okay.
So this meeting is being held remotely via Zoom in accordance with the governor order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. If you're watching at home and would like to join, you can go to zoom.us and enter the meeting ID 865-1264-6250 and the passcode 541553. Or you can join us by phone 646-876-9923 and use the same meeting ID and passcode. All of this information and a link to join the meeting can also be found on the agenda, which is on the town's webpage, just the front page. So back to Dan.
So we'll open the public hearing, and I think probably since our question was at the last meeting was whether, what exactly the scope of our approval is and all that. So I think maybe we'll start with Lisa Mead, Town Council, who can explain what we really can and are allowed to do.
Sure. Mr. Chair, if I could, just as a procedural matter, given that we're doing this on Zoom, if you could please take attendance from everyone by roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Attendance?
Attendance, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
A roll call attendance.
Lakshmi Krishnan.
Unmute.
Deepa Venkat.
Joe.
Joe Rubertone, present.
Tricia, unmute.
Tricia Kendall, here.
Gail Buchanan here. So all 5 of the board members are here.
Great, thank you. So, Mr. Chair, as you requested, I have provided the board with an email. While the board has a special permit, the federal government passed the Federal Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012, which specifically was meant to limit the authority of local boards, permit agencies, in refusing to approve modifications to pre-existing cell towers or cell installations. And there are very specific guidelines around the approvals that you're required to provide. That has been upheld in a number of different instances. It's a little odd for the board because the board has a special permit provision in the bylaw related to modifications as well as installation of cell towers. But this federal law overlays on top of that. So you are truly limited to the review authority under whether or not it's a substantial change, and Mr. Klasnick can go over his position on that, and then the board can decide whether it meets those criteria. And those are the criteria you're allowed to consider. You're not allowed to consider the extraneous criteria or considerations of the environment or health. There was a prior determination under the FCC regulations that that was not an appropriate consideration for the location and installation of cell towers and or other installations. And so your criteria is truly limited to whether or not it is a substantial change as defined under the Act. And Mr. Klasnick has put forward those criteria in his various filings with you, in addition to addressing the other criteria set forth in the bylaw. So that's what you're really limited to, and that is what I would recommend the board focus attention on.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Klasnick, would you like to present your?
Yes, good evening. My name is Dan Klasnick. I'm the attorney representing the applicant in this matter. First, I wanted to thank the board for the opportunity to continue the review of the proposed T-Mobile modification of its existing facility that's located on the telecommunications tower located at 20 Ponderosa Road. As we had discussed back in October, this is the same property where the DPW offices are located at. We've entered into a lease with the town. We received a specific letter of authorization from the town manager to proceed forward with this application, working with Peter, and we went ahead and assembled the materials pursuant to your bylaw with the understanding that the modification was one that qualified as an eligible facilities request. The chair has already read, I think, into the record what's being proposed, but I would just, I guess, reiterate. It's an existing, as I said, a monopole tower. T-Mobile is located at the antenna center line height currently of 147 feet. They have a mount, a triangular style mount that has 6 antennas and some remote radio heads mounted to that. So the mount itself will not be changing. What they're proposing to do is just remove 3 of those existing antennas, some of the remote radio heads. They'll be installing 9 new antennas. So at the end of the day, there will be a total of 12 antennas on that existing mount. And behind those are what we call, or what the industry calls the remote radio heads. Those are just radios to transmit the signals. Excuse me. In addition, there's going to be some changes to the ground equipment, as the chair has already said, but it will all occur within the existing fenced area. There's already a concrete pad. T-Mobile already has cabinets installed there. So what they'll be doing is just swapping some of those cabinets out and adding one additional battery backup cabinet. So that's the complete description of what's being proposed. And I thought it would be helpful to the board. So on December 4th, I provided some follow-up correspondence where I tried to go through and break down each one of the FCC criteria as applying to that, what we call colloquial section 6409A standards, as Lisa has already made reference to and described very well to the board. So really, in looking at those criteria, what the FCC did was to look at the Act and define what would constitute a substantial change, because that was really left undefined. And so initially there was quite a bit of confusion. So the FCC, as a regulatory body, went through and broke down each one of those criteria. And I submit in my correspondence that this facility is exactly what was intended when they provided that criteria and when they passed that Act. What was proposed to do was really to facilitate the rolling out of the upgrades to these necessary facilities as we continue to experience exponential demands on the network. So it was really to facilitate the deployment of this technology. So if we look at each of the criteria, what the FCC talks about at first is height. And in this instance, there's not going to be any increase in height. What T-Mobile is proposing to do is locate their antennas on the exact same mount at the exact same 147-foot centerline height. There won't be any extension from the tower any greater than there is now, because once again, they'll be using that existing mount. There's only going to be a total of 3 cabinets located within the fenced area when the final modifications are done. And in addition, there's not going to be any excavation outside of the compound area because everything's occurring within the existing fenced area. monopole. There won't be any defeating of any concealing elements because this is really utilizing a standard type monopole facility, and the facility will continue to comply with the criteria of the original approval. So I guess I would submit to the board that this is a textbook case of exactly what 6409 was intended to accomplish, which was to facilitate the deployment of these types of facilities. And therefore, we would just respectfully request that this board grant the necessary approvals so that we can proceed to file for the necessary building permit and then install the equipment. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, first, any comments or questions from the board? Remember, keep it to what the scope of what we're allowed, which is significant change. So if you have anyone on the board have any questions or comments? No.
I'm good.
All right, well then we'll go ahead and open up for public comment, and I'll reiterate the same thing, that we want to keep it to the scope of what we are actually allowed to decide here. We're not going to consider the health, any of that stuff. It's a significant change to the actual site. So I see Cece has her hand up.
Yeah, I would submit that this is new technology. Mr. Klasnick, I believe in the last meeting you said as much, that this is not just more the same of 3G and 4G. You're now installing 5th generation technology. Is that correct?
Yes, this will be a 5G capable site.
Yeah.
But I guess I would offer that as absolutely no bearing upon 6409 or whether or not it's a substantial change to the facility.
Well, I would, if we can, push back as hard as we legally can on that. That is a significant and substantial change. It's an entirely new technology that's being laid on top of the backbone of 3G and 4G antennas. 5th generation technology is entirely different. It is proposing to use beamforming technology, MIMO, which is used in military operations for crowd control. And it is substantially different from what we have on Ponderosa Road today.
Okay, so I just have a quick question for Lisa. So when they talk about the significant change, does that mean change in technology or a footprint? Or are we talking about the footprint basically, and the size of the tower and the physical, right? We're considering the physical dimensions of this site, right? Or,
that is correct.
Okay, so we can't say, well, they're going from 2G to 8G. That's a significant change. We don't want it because that really it's going to be the same footprint, right?
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear that we're not deciding on the technology. We're deciding on the vision. If you look at the site, is they going to be adding something, making it taller, making it bigger dimensionally? That's what we're
positive that we cannot push back because it is a new technology. It is substantially different from what's already up there.
That's not the term the definition of substantial change is very clear. It does not have to do with a change in technology. It has to do with the physical characteristics of what's being changed.
Okay. Well, we're just sticking to the law.
Well, I get that, but how long are we going to stick to the law instead of pushing back on the law? What is Ashland going to do to affect change to the laws that are harming our community? Are you just going to sit there and roll over?
I think that's a whole nother.
It is, but when are we going to start that conversation, Mr. Buchanan? We have been having these conversations in Ashland for years.
You can start it, but right now, all we're deciding is the physical dimensions of the site. So this is not the time, I don't believe, to start it. You can set up a time, you can have hearings, you can do, you can promote that. But tonight we have to decide, and we're limited on what we can decide on. So I really don't want to spend the time to get into starting a conversation about that at this point.
Okay. Ms. Mead, were you involved with Jim Tigas and the Burlington Small Cell Committee?
I came on after they had special counsel at the time. I was hired after that.
Okay. because Burlington got on this. If we had done this long ago, we might have been able to do something more to make it more difficult for the industry to come in and put these toxic cell towers right inside our neighborhoods. So this is very serious, and I hope you guys will put this on your agenda sooner rather than later to start protecting Ashland.
Maybe there's other forums too that you can go to besides just the planning board. I mean,
Oh,
because
there are. I've been
to start
speaking with the Board of Health about this for years, and everybody listens, but nobody does anything to protect the citizens and the children especially.
But you can see how even though if we put this on our agenda, we can't do anything about it. So maybe.
However, if we had strengthened our bylaws, we might have been able to.
I think clearly, CC, you're extremely passionate about this, and you're spend a lot of time educating yourself and studying this issue. And I think, again, the planning board is here to serve the people of Ashland and the public, and we're elected by the public. And so, if we want to begin a conversation about looking at the bylaws for cell towers in Ashland, and as you're saying, trying to talk about how we can change that to address some of the concerns, like the board's here to have that conversation. And I think clearly you would be a leading advocate and voice.
And I have been asking for years to do this, and the town of Ashland has done nothing. We became the first in the nation to put up a sign in our schools to start protecting the kids, but it's just a sign. Nobody is looking at the radio frequency radiation emissions. Except New Hampshire finally just passed a law.
Okay.
I think it's important to note that there's two sides still of this issue. And I've been doing some reading about it as well. And it's just, I agree with Joe. I think it's great, like, that people should be passionate about things and present those things. But because we aren't making a move, that we're acting according to the policy set by the town and the state laws and the local regulations, that is what we are supposed to do, as well as other.
I know, Trish, but as long as everybody.
But please let me finish. I didn't interrupt you. I didn't interrupt you, Cece.
Sorry.
I didn't interrupt you. So it's important to also understand that there should be forums in which these things should be discussed, and other such things have come up before too. But just because maybe the prevalent thought of the town goes another direction doesn't mean the town is doing anything wrong.
Well, I honestly don't think the town has investigated
other data, and I agree. I know you don't agree with it, but we have to put these things in the correct forum, and to realize that there are two sides, not just one that's being ignored. So
and also too, to your point, Joe, you were talking about I want to interject this, that you were saying, well, maybe we need to have a discussion about changing bylaws and stuff. There's federal laws. We can't, there's stuff we have no control over. That's why we're stuck here, is because that's the state and the federal laws.
I fully understand, and I fully understand, Dale, yes, that there is FCC law, and that in situations like this, there's no basis, given this case, there's no basis for us to say no to this under the rules and auspices here. There are elements of the bylaws which Ashland could adjust that would impact future sites that they might propose. I mean, there's not. All I'm saying is, I understand in this situation, there's no basis for us to not approve this change. I'm just saying that. I mean, there are things that we could impact in the future if the public feels important and wants to vote for it. There are things we could do as a planning board, as being the primary entity that brings forward zoning and bylaw changes to the town of Ashland. So that's my only point. Like, I understand this situation, and I'm not arguing that point.
And I don't want to get too far away from what we're voting on tonight.
Can I just ask Ms. Mead?
To the substantial change to the tower.
No, Ms. Mead, are you an expert in telecom law?
I'm not an expert in telecommunications.
There are experts in telecom law, people who have worked for the industry for years and then realized what they were doing, and then they switched sides, and now they're representing towns and the public to protect us. So I would highly recommend that you don't just roll over to the industry, and that you go back and find a good lawyer. And no disrespect to you, Ms. Mead, but This is what the industry is banking on, that they come into our towns, people don't know any better, so they just roll over. I would recommend that you get a legal expert who understands the ins and outs of the telecom laws and then make a decision.
The one thing that I object to, CC, is the statement that we're rolling over. So this board is not rolling over. This board is following the rules. We brought town council in to kind of give us the legal lay of the land on this issue. If the townspeople, if you start a discussion and the townspeople feel that there's something needs to change, then something can change. I just don't like the term rolling over with regard to this board, because I don't think this board is rolling over.
Well, one of the things that happens is the industry puts a lot of things in their applications that look fine and dandy, but when you peel it back with a legal expert, a lot of it isn't actually accurate, or in some cases not even true. So what I'm saying is we should have experts who understand telecom law so they can call out the industry. And I had a lovely conversation with Mr. Klasnick before our last meeting. I shared with him what the industry's been doing. I shared with him what the laws are. I shared with him what the law in New Hampshire is that is now being called out by the European Parliament this week. They want to do what New Hampshire did. So this is way bigger than Ashland. But if we start just allowing 5G into Ashland, you're going to open up Pandora's box. And their goal is to have a small cell antenna every 2 to 12 houses at the curb outside of your home and mine. That's what 5G is. And so if we don't check every recourse on this first application, then good luck to you.
So if I could, Mr. Chair, I think I would just like to remind the board and those in attendance that the board plays two roles. The board serves as an adjudicatory body where they compare applications against the existing law, and they have to apply that law, the special permit criteria, the zoning bylaw, federal and state laws to that particular application. They don't get to make up new rules along the way. They have to apply the law that exists. Then they also have a role where they're advisory to town meeting related to the creation of new zoning bylaws. And in that role, they can indeed adopt new zoning bylaws to address situations that they may want to address, or form new rules around different, different development possibilities, including things like 5G and small cell. This particular application is a modification to an existing tower. It is not the same thing as putting on small cell antennas along the streets and public ways, which is a lot of what Ms. Doucette is referring to. In any event, the town can adopt those regulations as it wishes to do, and many communities in Massachusetts have started to do that. That is a different process. You have an application in front of you that you have to judge on the law that exists at this moment. And that's what my recommendation is.
And Mark's been waiting patiently. Mark? Unmute. You're muted, Mark.
Oh, that's a good idea. How's that?
Better.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you, Mark Tassoni. And I'm going down a couple of streets here to understand what's going on, and there's been a pretty good coordination of telling people, saying things to people between CC, town manager, not town manager, but town council, and what Mr. Kless is going to actually put up. My idea is that my question would be within the fenced-in area and all that's working on, the antenna's not going to get any higher, is, do you know, through the Mr. Chairman, through Mr. Classic, do you know if the FCC is being more flexible in certain frequency carry-ins and what they're doing? Or are users trying to put 5G up to be a strong overbearing to the competition? Can Mr. Classic say what the FCC in his file and say about regulations of carrying out frequencies to overload, to overdo other competitions? That's one question. Can they answer that? And I got another one once I hear that.
Would you like me to answer that, Mr. Chairman?
It's-
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
would you like me to try and respond? or-
He
Yeah,
said
go ahead.
yes.
Your
He said
question,
yes.
so wait.
Okay, I apologize.
Sorry, I should have.
No, I mean, well, I'll answer that the best way I can. T-Mobile is FCC licensed wireless service provider. All the other wireless providers, whether it be Verizon Wireless, Sprint, or whomever, they are also FCC licensed wireless service providers. They all operate within their licensed frequency ranges. They allocate the frequencies, they design their network based upon their business priorities. So all the action that is being taken by T-Mobile and all the other wireless service providers are really consistent with their mandate, which is to maximize and utilize the frequencies, which are really a valuable resource to enhance wireless service and provide the best possible service to their customers.
So by putting in, by putting in what you want to put in there in the existing site, it would be comparable in frequency ranges to work and cooperate with what's going to be in the area out there for the a G carrier.
Mr. Clappy.
All I can say is that they're operating within their FCC license mandate. Everything will be done in compliance with their licensing. There won't be any interference. They're not allowed to interfere with any other licensed signals. So I apologize. I don't know how else to answer it. They're operating pursuant to their licenses as required by their licenses.
So in general, it's a comparability with AT&T only, but has AT&T actually looked up other competitors and tried to match up to be in the marketable rates of what they're going to be doing?
Yeah, I can't speak to AT&T. I mean, T-Mobile's application is before the board, so.
Well, what company is mobile for?
T-Mobile,
Yeah,
that's the applicant.
yeah. And what's T-Mobile for? What company?
T-Mobile, Mark.
T-Mobile is the company.
Well, it can't be just T. It could be T. Could be telecom. Could be telephone. Could be telegraph.
Well, that's
I don't know
their
what it
name of the
stands for.
company,
I just
T-Mobile.
T-Mobile.
So it's gonna be working on with the frequencies that is already FCC comparable, but it's also going to be more new. So it's got more powerful to anything that comes near it because it's newer and being put in, being upgraded. Yes or no?
And the best way I can answer that is it's going to be fully compliant with their FCC licensing. They're required to operate at certain power levels. They're not going to be exceeding the power levels that they're authorized to operate at. Everything will be in full compliance.
So have you talked to the engineers about the people, about what they're going to be putting in that site, in those cabinets?
That information has been provided, Mark, as part of the application.
Well, what is that information?
And we want to remember, Mark, we're trying to stick to the.
And it is sticking to it. It is.
Oh,
it is.
It is. We can't decide on the technology.
As the board, no, but as T-Mobile representative, he can because it's his equipment. The engineer's equipment is put in for T-Mobile, and I want to know what that equipment is. What T-Mobile is putting in for equipment in those cabinets.
They're just the standard radios that they utilize to transmit when the signal comes through the antennas, down the cables into that box. It processes those signals.
And the radio signals? I know it's not a regular AM FM radio. It's a high frequency condensed energy out there, but it's not a complete until it's comparable and matched up to what's going to be carried out? Yes or no? And since you're a representative, you're not an engineer who's going to be putting the stuff in and won't have the paperwork, right?
Maybe you can, maybe you have to
Provided detailed.
Let him
plan.
let him answer. This is a question straight to him.
I know, but this has nothing to do with what we're doing.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
It does because it's going to carry out. It's
It
going to
does.
carry out off the antenna. The
We aren't-
frequency carried out.
We aren't considering that. The technology or that we're considering the footprint, the height, the size.
And then, okay. So,
And I'm not trying to cut you off. It's just a different conversation.
I know it's a different.
Have and we start having. However, tonight.
Dale, let me finish what I'm trying to come around to the point.
If it has to do with what we're voting on.
Yes,
then
it does. It does.
Okay.
It does. Let me finish it. I'll get to the point. He's representing, but he's not the engineer who's going to be on the site with the paperwork and all the tools and all the equipment. And the board is going to go by what is presented in front of them. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Now, to CC, she's looking out, as I'm looking out, for the frequency of how it compares what's going to do to regular human beings and what it does to their mind, brain, and brain stuff like that goes off scientifically. So that's why I'm asking about what the equipment going into the cabinets. If he doesn't know, then he's going to talk to the engineers to get that information, and that equipment should be scientifically tested, dated, and looked at before it gets put in.
So Mark, the FCC regulates what is allowable to go onto those cell towers. T-Mobile would not be able to put devices onto those towers that the FCC hasn't approved for use in this cellular technology, right? So I know that CC disagrees with the FCC and feels that it is unhealthy and disagrees with the FCC's position on this equipment. But at the end of the day, the FCC is the governing body and it has approved the technology that they are proposing to put onto this tower. So, and again, as Dale has said, that is beyond the scope of what we're here to discuss tonight and or approve.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
And to bring back into the scope, because it's going to be an antenna that each person that has a cell or smartphone that's T-Mobile is going to be in their hands next to their body. And FTC regulations sometimes are off scientifically compensated sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
so
I'm almost done. And then on CC's part, through the board, to Mr. Classics and to town council, all those has got to come as one big circle to be together on to make this a full scope of presentation and a presentation that the people who have their own smartphone with T-Mobile apps are gotta be working all together so it won't harm them in any way. Or my first question was to Mr. Classic was, will this make the T-Mobile frequency carrying much more stronger and to overtake the competitors? That's where my question came from, and I'm done. And that's what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I think real quick, I'll get back to the thing. We're really not deciding on that. I think we figured out we need to have a conversation about future cell phone equipment, towers, technology, and all that in Ashland, and we can do that. But I really want to stick to what we're deciding tonight because we're getting so far off that I want to have focus on, are there any significant changes in the hardware and the tower or any of that stuff tonight? Okay, CC?
Yeah, I do have a couple of comments regarding the actual application. One of the things that came out in the New Hampshire legislative investigation is that these applications come in based on theoretical calculations, but there's no follow through to see what is the actual exposure where these cell towers are going in. So I think it would be advisable for the town to get out there and measure what the actual exposure measurements are, and then compare those to what the FCC has as allowable limits. So that would be one thing. And then there was another thing, part of the environmental review that's in there. When I went out and actually just stumbled on that cell tower out there, because I was just out enjoying the new bridge and the walkway out there, I was astounded that that cell tower is so close to wetlands and stuff out there. So I would ask that the town go out and check and see if what Mr. Klasnick has in his application is actually true, that it's not within any area that could harm the environment as he's got stated in there. And I would get real live readings of what the exposures are, because look at this. He's taken down 3 and putting up 12, right? Those exposures are increasing exponentially. So it would, you know, somebody needs to have a little accountability there.
I think it would be good to have that conversation. However, we're again we aren't voting on how much exposure. And I guess to clear up your other comment there, maybe Lisa can help me with this. If it's close to the wetlands, it's an existing tower and it's been approved and installed.
It's been there.
We can't move it or make them change it, right?
No, it's existing. And so it would have had to get the original approvals, which would have happened in the early 90s, I believe, mid 90s. So it would have been, you know, for zoning purposes, pre-existing non-conforming, for wetlands purposes, would have had the permits at the time. So that's correct.
But isn't this also an opportunity to reevaluate and make sure that what they say they're doing in their application is actually what is going to be done?
Well, I believe I think Peter just joined us, but I believe that that the building department and Peter and Emma already reviewed the application before it came into the board to confirm the size of what's being proposed. And so in order to get the building permit and then the sign off after the building permit, they will have to verify that what was installed is what was permitted.
And so is that a commitment from the town to go out and do measurements to make sure that what was independent measurements, not the vendor's measurements, but independent measurements to make sure that what we are now exposing all those neighbors to is still within what the application says? Cumulatively, you guys have a lot of antennas that you've leased up on that tower.
So they will be able to determine that when they issue the permits and sign off on the installation, which is what the building department does.
Yes. So thank you, Lisa. I was just able to join the meeting. Sorry for my tardiness. But yes, at the time of the building permits, we will review what is currently on the tower and what is proposed to make sure that it fits all criteria. And we will be out there to make sure that what they do is what they do is actually what they say they will do.
But so Peter, can you please clarify, does that mean you're going to be out there actually measuring the radio frequency emissions?
No, it's not part of this
No.
planning permit, nor is it part of the building department requirements. That is not what the planning board does, nor are they permitted to do, nor is it what the building department signs off on.
Okay, but it may be something that we should reconsider moving forward, because what we're finding is that these exposures are not being accounted for. They do theoretical calculations in the applications, but nobody goes out and checks what have they really installed in our neighborhoods.
So that's a different, I already had this conversation. It's a different issue for a different time.
Yeah.
Okay.
It should be had. We should have that conversation. And
Sooner rather than
like
later.
Trish said, we should have both sides too. We should have all sides of everything, and that would be a whole, this meeting was for adding new and, doing the change that we're allowed to do. So maybe some people aren't here that would like to speak, give a different point of view. So that's another conversation that you should work on having. But tonight, I think we need to stick to the application,
I would
what
still
we're
suggest-
allowed to approve or
I
deny.
would still suggest the town engage a lawyer who knows what these applications are. We're just receiving them from industry going, yeah, all looks good, and signing off.
Well, with all due respect, Mr. Chair, if I could,
Go ahead.
the town does not give a wink and a nod on these applications. This is a very specific application under a very specific criteria in the bylaw and under the Middle Class Tax Relief Act. It is not what you're suggesting about drafting new legislation. So the town has not just given a wink and a nod here. There's been very serious review of the application compared to what's existing up there and what the requirements are.
That's true, and I don't question that. I question whether there are other things in that application that somebody that doesn't have a learned eye would not even know are staring at them.
I understand I understand that, but that's not the criteria related to this particular application at this time under this bylaw and the FCC rules.
So again, that'll be a conversation to have at some point for future. Okay, anybody else from the public have anything to say? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing unless the board has any more comments or questions.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, roll call, please.
Trisha Kendall, I.
Lakshmi Krishnan, I.
Deepa Venkatai.
Joe Rubertone, aye.
Bill Buchanan, aye. That passes 5-0-0. And then I guess I'll entertain a motion to approve the special permit for T-Mobile.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, roll call, please.
Trisha Kendall, I.
Lakshmi Krishnan, I.
Deepa Venkatai.
Joe Rubertone, aye.
Bill Buchanan, aye. That passes 5-0-0. And thank you very much, everybody. Lisa,
Great to see everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Continue.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the board's consideration. Have a great evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next on it is a review of 5 Homer Street sign design. This is a permit we approved for a dental office earlier, and I guess now we're approving the sign, huh? Or
Yeah.
we just reviewing it, or?
Yes, so when they when you issued the decision for the site plan review for 5 Homer back earlier this year, in June. Condition number 7 was the applicant shall submit a final rendering of the proposed sign to the board for review and approval. Such approval by the board shall not be unreasonable. So I distributed the renderings that the applicant has submitted of their sign application. Those are also on their webpage, applicant webpage on the Ashland's website. And so, yeah, it's for your review.
You want it, Mr. Shaw? You want to show us what you, can you?
Yeah, if you guys want me to, I can show the latest renderings.
Okay.
I think, okay, yep, share screen.
Just for the public, I have them here, and I think the planning board all got copies, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this is for the outside sign. This is the latest render. This is more or less the same as the previous one that I submitted several months ago. The only real difference is that the font is a little bit more curvy than before, but I mean, I don't think most people would be able to notice that. And similar over here. And this is a little more accurate to what's right there right now, because we already took down awnings, and that's about it. Anything else?
Those are, could you, sorry, Dr. Shaw, could you put that back up for a moment?
Sure. Share. There.
Okay. And so we can see above the sign, there's gooseneck lighting, which will light the sign in the evening, right?
Yes.
And that's on this side of the building as well as on the front side. Is that correct? Yep, I can see the
Yes.
gooseneck, 3 gooseneck, and that's what will be installed, and that's what will light the sign.
Yes, there is no like backlit LED or anything like that. It's all going to be gooseneck based.
And those are
Great.
the actual colors of the sign there, I would imagine.
So yeah, the Zen Family Dental is going to be white. The Enso is going to go from a aqua blue into a navy blue, and the goosenecks are black.
Got it.
Kind of similar to my coming soon sign, except the tooth is white.
Okay.
In case you guys needed
Other comments from the board?
I don't see where it poses any problem for the town. Just says what it needs to say. It seems subtle. I like the curve of your text. So
thank you.
Okay, then I guess we'll need a motion to approve the sign, Zen Family Dental.
So moved.
I second.
All in favor, roll call please.
Trisha Kendall, I.
Lakshmi Krishnan, I.
Deepa Venkatai.
Joe Rubertone, aye.
Dale Buchanan, aye. It passes 5-0-0.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Dr. Shaw.
Dr. Shaw,
Good luck.
we will send you a memo that will also be sent to the building department to alert them that you're all set to go. So
Okay,
we'll
sounds
be in
great.
touch.
Okay.
And thank you everybody for voting in order again. Okay, so next on the agenda is a request for a bond release for 81 West Union Phase 1. I believe that's the storage. Peter might want to give us an update on this because he's been working with the owner, right? Correct?
That is correct, Dale. So thank you. So currently, this past summer, well, I would say over the course of the last 6 months, I was working with the developer of the site. When they filed, then when they requested temporary occupancy, I asked for a bond for all outstanding work. The bond amount was decided in a review by GCG Associates, who are a third-party review engineer. And so after a bond was requested, a bond of $107,910 was submitted to the town, and it is in the town's, I would say, coffers at this time, in an escrow account, obviously, for the developer. So at this time, the developer is asking for a reduction in the bond. They have completed all outstanding work. They did the top coat, they did landscaping, they put in all the curbing and the ramps, and the traffic signs that were missing. And so I've personally have gone out and done 3 or 4 inspections over the course of the last 3 months to make sure everything is done. I can tell you with confidence that all the plantings were put in as required by the approved planning board plan. So at this time, the one thing that I am missing is the final as-built drawing plans. However, due to the size of the bond, the cash bond that we currently hold, tonight I asked the board to vote to reduce the bond that is held by the town of Ashland in the sum of $107,910 to the amount of $5,000. And so I can return that to the developer and the owner of the building.
Comments from the board? Okay, so Pete, what you're saying is they've pretty much done everything except for as-built, and it's all the landscaping and everything is done, the parking lot done to the plans,
Correct.
and we're good.
Parking lot, final pavement, the fence is in, the fence around the dumpsters was implemented as granite. They have done everything that I've asked them to do, including repaint the solid yellow line. I'm sorry, the solid double yellow line in West Union Street, along with implement all the stop signs and everything down from the traffic signs to the dumpster enclosures to the seating. And, you know, they did put in irrigation throughout the site. They did put in every planting that was required. And so at this time, I can assure you that I've gone through the site with a fine tooth comb with the history of this site. And at this time, I am confident that they have met what you can have confidence that they have actually met the plans that were approved by the planning board within phase one.
Okay, so you're saying if you want to reduce to 5,000, and what's that in case they just don't submit it as built? You have to send someone in there to do it, or how? Why? What's?
Yeah, it just kind of keeps a little bit. It keeps a little into the. It gives the town a little bit of leverage for them to produce the as-built plan.
Okay.
And so
when they have to have that
I think they're working on it right now. Hopefully they'll have it in by, the end of, February or so. I have a call in with the engineering company Grady Consulting, who created the plans. And I've asked to have an update on that. However, due to the size of the bond, I think it's appropriate to at least, a large portion of that. We could, I do have a strong relationship with Grady Consulting, the engineers on the project. And so I do trust that they will produce the as-built plan. And I would say over the last couple of months, I have created a good working relationship with the owners of the storage unit. And so I have no doubt that we will get our as-built plan. But the $5,000 is just, it is the estimated amount it costs to create by GCG. And so therefore, I think it makes sense to kind of hold that $5,000 back. And it gives the town a little bit of leverage to make sure that plan is produced.
Okay, so one question was, is there a deadline when that as-built has to be submitted by?
I'll put the way we'll do this is I'll put a note on the building permit. And so it kind of gives a condition on that building permit.
Okay, so legally, there's no like deadline, there's 1 year, 6 months, anything like that, right? They just.
I would say best practice. It's completed within 6 months of the final of the full occupancy of that building, and like they're still getting around. They're finished, and they finished 3 months ago, and so I think we're still within the time frame of the professional time frame of when they should submit the as-built.
Okay, so then the usual question about the bonds is something happens and they just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And is it going to 5,000 cover us to do it, or is it going to cost 8 or?
No, 5,000 would cover the amount of the bond.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just asking because you work with this all the time, so I just don't know what the figures are. We just want to make sure we're covered. So for the incidents with the COVID and everything, who knows what business goes under or what happens, but to make sure we're covered.
I would say if $5,000 is for the only remaining element is for an as-built site plan, assume that's not plans for the whole building. It's just the site plan that confirms, everything that's on a typical site plan. Then that amount seems in the range to me.
Okay, thank you.
And when do we release the 5,000? Do we wait till everything is done and the building is occupied and then release the 5,000 or?
We wait until the as-built is submitted, it's
Oh,
verified
okay.
with our third-party engineer, and then I'll be back in front of the board and I can present the plan, and then we'll vote to release the remaining funds. Gotcha.
Okay. I think it's I think it's a good idea. I don't think we need to hold back $100,000 for a site plan. So I'll entertain a motion to reduce the bond to $5,000.
So moved.
I second.
All in favor, roll call, please.
Trisha Kendall, I.
Lakshmi Krishnan, I.
Deepa Venkatai.
Joe Rivertone, aye.
Gail Buchanan, aye. Passes 5-0-0. All right, thanks. Thanks, Pete, for making sure. Okay, now we have a Valentine's zoning update. Who's gonna do that? Pete?
I can. Dale, do you mind if I just put myself on, just kind of take a 2-minute break?
Okay, well, we can go over minutes if you want.
Can you go over minutes and then it will allow me to come back?
That'd be a couple of minutes of silence, right?
Okay. Yes. Thank you so much.
All right, so has everybody seen the minutes, read them?
We should have required that has to come back with the baby so we can see her.
Yeah, I know. He's hiding now. There's something
Yeah,
wrong.
like what is this? Just a name. We know there's a baby, we want to see her.
But the question is, does it look like Pete? It looks exactly like Pete.
So we're doing what, October 22nd minutes? Is that what we're doing here?
Yes. October 22nd. For some reason I can't get mine to come up with the line numbers. So if I find something, I'll just have to steer you in the direction. There he is.
Row 51 and 52 on the second page. On the second page, as well as the negative effect the wireless tower has on nearby property taxes. Did it mean to be taxes or was it just property? I think she said taxes. I think that's right. You guys remember?
I don't remember.
Sorry, Trish, what was that?
I don't remember exactly what she said.
Looking through my notes.
Everybody okay?
Just give me 30 seconds more. All right.
And on that one, I guess we can look at that, right, to see if that, look at the video or something to see if the taxes, that one change.
I think it's fine. It's
Yeah.
okay. That's fine. I'm good.
Everybody else ready? I'll entertain a motion to approve the October 22nd, 2020 minutes.
So moved.
Seconded. Sorry.
All in
That's okay, that's okay.
All in favor, roll call, please.
Trisha Kendall, I.
Lakshmi Krishnan, I.
Deepa Venkatai.
Joe Rivertone, aye.
Dale Buchanan, aye, and that passes 5-0-0. Okay, now we'll go to the Valentine zoning update. If you're ready, Pete.
Yeah,
We
sorry.
had really hoped that we would get to see a baby here this evening.
We wanted a Matt Check family update.
Yeah, well, I
It's
had,
lovely to see your face, but really,
I'd
yeah,
like to see the babies.
Baby.
I'll send pictures out to everybody tomorrow.
Okay.
But, yeah, it was my first bedtime with 2 kids in the house, and it was a struggle. I said Macy, and then I had Georgie, but I just wanted to give everyone just kind of a quick update about the Valentine zoning. Obviously, we did cancel the last planning board meeting, which would have been a public hearing for that zoning. The Valentine committee, they did receive some RFPs back in. The zoning that, in what it came down to, I think, is everyone from the Valentine zoning, the Valentine committee, and really kind of wanted to kind of take it a little bit slower to make sure they got everything right concerning what the future of that property is for the town and for any future uses. So I think without that pressure to do something kind of, within the next upcoming, I would say, months, it was best for the town and for us as a board as a whole, right? And I say the town, I include the planning board, is just to kind of take a step back. We have the zoning drafted. Emma did a great job helping me out getting it to the point where we did. But I think at the end of the day, whatever that use is, we just want to make sure the zoning matches up with that use. And so therefore, when we go forward with something, we can put a zoning overlay district in place, which is going to match what the community wants and need and the use actually needs, instead of putting something forward, having the use or RFP or that proposal change, and then having to go back to amend that zoning bylaw, which was passed previously. So I think that's kind of the step. I think that was the course change that was taken, and I think it was probably the best thing to do at the time, especially with everything that's going on with COVID and all the other elements that all the boards and the committees are dealing with. So we do have the Valentine zoning draft. We're going to put it up on the website if anybody from the community wants to take a look at it. But obviously we already have that, and we can use that as kind of a jump off point when we kind of come back around whenever that future town meeting is to make those changes and adopt some zoning which will allow that property to enter its next phase, I would say. So I just kind of want to sum up and wrap it up for everybody and not, kind of leave any loose ends out there.
And Pete, is there any way to look at some of the proposals that are coming in?
Yeah, I believe
That might be helpful if we know kind of what people are thinking about doing there.
I'm sure I can Emma and I are not organizing have those kind of coming through us or the planning office, but Dale, I'll try to get my hands on them and I'll see, and I assume they're gonna.
They're on the
post-
town website, are they not?
Yeah, I assume
Right.
they're on the town website. So tomorrow I'll send out a link to the planning to everybody. Just shooting everybody a link to let them so everyone can kind of read a couple good ones and a couple out of the box ideas that made everybody kind of open their eyes and think a little bit differently of what is the best use of that property.
Okay.
Okay.
For what it's worth, I'm really glad that the decision was made to go this way, and it was decided to kind of slow down and have a more fulsome discussion here. So I appreciate that, and I think that this is a better way for us to check it.
All right, thank you, Joe.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I'd like to thank Peter for the explanation for the Four Corners for the zoning part, because that was my little back of the mind thinking, is it going through zoning, going through everything else? And going through the circles, the four corners of the zoning. And the reason why I think, now through Peter, if he knew from last night's town meeting, was that the warrant articles that were taken off the floor last night?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was the Valentine, and then there was a cleanup zoning article which Emma and I have been proposing. However, due to the last 2 COVID town meetings, those were pulled. It was just a cleanup kind of design review bylaw kind of Scrivener. It corrects a Scrivener's error within the zoning bylaw.
Yeah, it was probably best that it was just kept really clean, the meeting, just what had to be done, and that's it.
Yep, and I think I was in town hall today. It was 7. I think at the end, it was a 70-minute town meeting. I heard it was very clean, and I think everyone felt really safe. I think the town did a great job, kind of putting the desks 6 feet apart from everybody, and I hope we have a successful town meeting in January, and we kind of move forward, and we keep all the balls in the air, I would say.
And thank you, Emma and Pete, for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
I mean at town hall too, not just at home with all the kids. Okay.
That's what we thought you were talking about, Dale.
Any reports from board members or future meetings, public hearings, any of that? Our next meeting is?
So our next meeting is January 14th.
That's a ways off.
So it's a ways off.
Emma might disagree.
Emma's got a.
I actually just wanted to share, but before the next meeting, the housing production plan steering committee will be hosting a public forum to kind of educate the town about what the plan is and kind of gain data. And so that will be December 29th, and information about that will be on the website soon.
Thank you. Good to know. Any other administrative, anybody got any announcements? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting at 8:27 p.m. Everybody wants to stay, man.
Yeah.
I was giving someone else a chance. So moved.
Step. Okay. We have a second anywhere?
I second that.
Okay, all in favor? Roll call, please.
Trisha Kendall, aye.
Lakshmi Krishnan, aye.
Deepa Venkatai.
Joe Rivertone, aye.
Dale Buchanan, aye. And that concludes our meeting. And thank you very much, everybody.
All right, thank
Good
you. I'll
night,
stay in touch
everyone.
with everybody over the next couple of weeks, obviously, as things come up. But also, happy holidays.
Happy
Thank you. I
holidays.
know tonight is the first night of Hanukkah. And, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year if I don't talk to you, but I'll be in